No, you're just rounding off. If we remember that cubits, the measurement that they were using, aren't quite as precise as meters, and we think about rounding, we realize, you know what, that makes sense. 30 is close to 31.4. If they're just using round numbers, that's fine. The inaccuracy that we find isn't so inaccurate after all. It's just not that inaccurate. We also find out that points of view ultimately align. Skeptics like to point to the Bible and say that there are conflicts between biblical ideas. In one place it says X, and in another place it says Y, and those things don't match up, and so we can disregard the Bible because it just is full of contradictions. But viewed properly, the contradictions, they actually match up. For example, faith versus works. Some people bring this up, and Paul says in Ephesians 2:8 that we are saved by what? We are saved by grace through faith. In James chapter 2, verse 14, James says, if somebody has faith but not works, can his faith save him? And the answer seems to be no. And so we say, well, those two just don't seem to match up. One says faith, one says works, conflict, and so just disregard it. But if you just understand the perspective, it makes sense. Paul is pointing out that none of our works is sufficient to save us. We don't earn our salvation. It's a free gift. James is pointing out that the faith that we have needs to be living and active and not just lip service. And taken together, those two just paint a good picture of what the truth is. We're saved through faith alone, and faith will end up demonstrating itself by the things that we do. There's no conflict. It's just presenting two sides of the same coin. So those points of view that seem in conflict, really, they ultimately align. We also find out that moral problems really aren't a problem. Critics of the Bible sometimes like to take the moral high ground. And they say, the God presented in the Bible does not act like God should act. If he's a good God, why does he allow such terrible things to happen to good people? For example, Joshua and the Israelites in Joshua chapter 6 are commanded to completely destroy the people who live in Jericho. They're supposed to go in there and wipe them all out. And that's tough. That's a tough teaching. But if we stop and think about it, we can figure this out. We can rationalize some of this because God himself explains the reason. He says the people who live in this land are wicked, and they're going to turn the Israelites away from worshiping the true God and start worshiping false gods. And God's intent was to set up this model nation in a strategic crossroads, and the best chance of success is to start off with a clean slate, where he doesn't have these pagan influences turning his people away from him. And so we can think about that, and we also have to just stop and say, am I God? Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I don't have all of the knowledge of the situation. Do I know the whole situation? Do I have God's knowledge? Does God use my standards of morality, or am I supposed to be using his? When I start to look at this, it's tough, but really we can start to come to grip with some of the challenges there. If we decide we believe the rest of the Bible to be trustworthy, the parts that say God is perfectly just, he's good, he's holy, he's loving, then we have to assume that somehow these actions fit in with that. If we can do that with our own country, we believe that we live in a good country, and when we fought against Hitler in World War II, that was a good thing, despite the fact that some innocent civilians died in the crossfire. We can still say we're a good nation because of that. If we can do that with our own nation, shouldn't we at least be willing to do that same thing with God? Based on reconciliation of facts, the Bible seems trustworthy. Do I trust it? Yeah. So when I look at past truth, I say, you know what? The Bible faces these everyday tests, and it passes each one. The source seems trustworthy. The story seems believable. The facts line up enough for me to say that it's true. And in everyday life, I would believe something like this. And so when I look at the Bible and the past truth that's presented in there, I can conclude so far that the Bible's true. All right? Good deal. But that's not all. We have to look farther. Because if it's true in the past, that's great. But is it still relevant for today? Truth carries forward from the past into the present. And why does present truth matter? Well, let me tell you. In just a couple of weeks, we face some big elections in the nation. People all across the nation are going to be voting for congressional appointments, and to win their votes, politicians are out there telling their people another thing. They're telling them all sorts of things, a number of things. This one over here is going to help create jobs. This one over here is going to be a fiscal conservative. This one over here is going to reject Washington politics. And this one over here is going to do the same thing too. And for us to make the choice correctly of a politician who reflects our values, we have to consider the present truth of their claims. Are they telling the truth for now, or are they just saying what they think we want to hear? By the way, the answer is B. They're just saying what we want to hear, just in case you were wondering. But the bottom line is we need to have truth about present events. We need to have that truth about present events, because no matter how true something was in the past, if it doesn't carry forward into the present, it won't work. It's like a broken light bulb. If it worked in the past, great, but if it doesn't work now, it's useless. This is important when we look at the Bible, because if the Bible has past truth but has no relevance for modern life, then we can relegate it to history. We can put it in the library, we can forget about it. But if it's true for today, the implications for our life are huge. So can we trust the Bible's claims about the present? That's our big question. Again, there's some everyday tests of truth that we can use that'll help us out. Okay? The first one has to do with the unexpected. It has to do with the unexpected. Is the information fairy tale? If you watch TV for any length of time, you're bound to see some products that are just amazing. They are going to make you thin and strong and smart and funny, and that stain that's in your pants that's been there for the last 10 years, it'll take that out too. It's great. I have a well-meaning friend of mine that actually bought one of these products for us after the birth of my daughter. And my daughter is going to be 2 in January. You might have seen this product. It's called Your Baby Can Read. Have you seen the commercials for that? It's great. The commercial shows success stories, babies reading flashcards at extremely young ages. They're showing it. What's this one? Turtle, that's right. Oh, elephant, chimpanzee, great. And these babies are reading. It's amazing. And it's all because of these wonderful scientifically designed videos. So our friend sends it to us. We get the package in the mail. I see the product. I'm immediately skeptical, but I say, okay, fine. It sounds like a fairy tale, but we'll give it a try. And so we pop in the video, and Cheney sits down. She starts watching this thing. She watches the videos. And you know what? Our baby can't read. We tried, but on the good note, she is addicted to videos now. So but that's what I expect. That's what I expect along the way. I expect for most things, I expect fairy tales. I expect claims that are too good to be true. The truth itself, that would be really unexpected. I'm still waiting for an ad to say that this product will clean a lot, but grease stains, not so much. I'm waiting for them to say, some people lost 50 pounds on this diet, but you have no willpower, so it's probably going to get you about 3 or 4. That's what I want to hear. I believe some things because no one would make that up. No one would make that up. And what happens when I apply that to the Bible? It gives me the unexpected. It gives me the unexpected. Fun stuff is excluded. Fun stuff is excluded. If the Bible were a sham, I'd expect it to be at least more exciting, right? There are lots of pagan religions out there that made life fun. You get to worship God by having sex. You get to take vengeance on your enemies. You get to do all sorts of things that we'd like to do, but the Bible is filled with commands that I don't get. It's stuff that we like that's getting regulated. Sex, speech, desires, pride. We're told not to engage in certain activities except within the boundaries that God puts there, and we say, wow, that's hard. He's excluding a lot of fun stuff from life. Why would we make that up? I also see that difficult stuff is included. If the Bible were made up, I think we'd make it easier. But instead, it has some really difficult teachings in it. Love your neighbor? Fine, if your neighbor's a nice guy. But love your enemies? What? That jerk from accounting? That's tough. Give to the needy? Okay, yeah, I can chip in a quarter when I'm passing by the homeless guy, sure. 10%? Seriously? That's tough. This is hard stuff. Difficult stuff is in there. I also find out that the Bible is not about us. The focus is not on me. I would think that something made up would be about how it benefits us. A lie would put us at the center, but the Bible puts us on the periphery. The focus of the Bible is on God, not on us. We're told to put aside the things that we want most in order to do the things that He wants most. We're told to take up our cross, to put to death our own agendas and follow Him. We're to keep our focus on Him through everything, even heaven. Even heaven, the thing that we think should be the culmination of human experience, of human pleasure and joy, it's not even about us. It doesn't even tell us much about what we're going to be doing except worshiping God. He's the focus of the whole thing. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Overall, I would expect a fairy tale for the present when I read the Bible, if it's a lie. But instead, I find the unexpected. I find challenge. I find a focus where I'd not expect. And consequently, I'd say, you know what? This doesn't seem made up. This seems trustworthy. This seems true for the present. Another test for the present that we see is functionality. Is the information functional? Is the information functional? Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV, but I'm reasonably confident about treating some illnesses that I have along the way. I believe that when I have a headache, I should take some ibuprofen. Okay, that's fine. I believe that when I have allergies, I can take a Claritin, and that's going to help me. I believe that when I have a toothache, I just need some cocaine. Officially, I don't have a diagnosis for these problems along the way. Officially, I can't state what chemical reaction takes place when I take an ibuprofen and it goes to my head and helps dull the pain. I don't know how that's happening, but I believe in these treatments because they work. I believe some things because they're simply helpful. In everyday life, I look for things that work. And so what happens when I apply this to the Bible? What happens when I take this test and apply that to the Bible? Well, I find out some things. I see that the Bible shares how to make relationships better. It's coming. There we go. I believe remotes should work if I'm pushing the button. The Bible shares how to make relationships better. If this book is from our Creator, it should explain how we function better with others. And it really does. It's filled with ethical teachings, like do not steal. It's filled with relationship principles that husbands and wives should submit to one another and love each other. Societal ideas, take care of those who are in need. It talks about taking care of the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. I hear from people all the time who have tried to put these principles into practice who say, it works. It was hard, but the biblical teaching improved my marriage. Okay, it works. The Bible also shares how to make finances better. Okay? If this is from our provider, it should explain how we function better with our resources. And it does. It's filled with teachings about stewardship, how to properly manage the things that I have. It's filled with teachings about generosity, how we're supposed to give things away to help others. And I hear from people all the time who've tried it, who've put these principles into practice, who say, it works. It was hard, but biblical teaching helped me get my money under control. Great. The Bible shares how to make me better. It shares how to make me better. If this is from our God, it should explain how we function better with Him. And it does. It's filled with instructions and encouragement for our spiritual lives. It spells out how we can have a relationship with Him despite our sins. It tells me how I can prepare for a life with God. And I hear from people all the time who have tried to put these principles into practice who say, it works. It was hard, but you know what? This really improved my relationship with God. From a functional standpoint, this stuff seems true. The Bible seems trustworthy in practice. So I have to consider that to be evidence of its truth for the present. There's one more present test of truth that I'd like to consider this morning. If we can go to the next slide. And that is, does it match real life? Does it match real life? Now, this might not seem much different from the previous test, but there's a key difference here, and I want to explain. Go to the next slide. If you listen to country music at all, you may have heard a fairly recent song by the artist Kenny Chesney. It's entitled The Boys of Fall, and that song presents a really great picture of small-town football teams. Vivid descriptions of the experience of being on the field, the camaraderie of being part of a team. From a functional standpoint, I'd say that it works.